It has been viewing every day and sharing. Appreciate that. We normally hang out here for just a minute, give everybody a chance to get signed on, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever you might be. We are also live on Instagram, by the way. One of the challenges with Instagram is that we can't do it in this format. They're watching through my phone, so I have a special guest today that you won't be able to see if you're on Instagram, but you will be able to hear. But if you are on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or LinkedIn, you will be able to see our very special guest. So we'll have him join us here in just a second. Before we get going, I want to say hi to Dwayne. Dwayne, you are right here first every time, and I appreciate that. Ted Stark knows our guest, and Ted's joining in. So let me just jump right on in. This is the first day that I have had a guest on the program. So let me welcome down in Dallas, Texas, my great pal, Randy Pennington. Randy, I'm so glad you were here. Thank you for making time to be here.
Thank you so much.
Really, I mean, I can honestly say you are the best guest we have ever had.
Until tomorrow.
I don't know. Sandboard's on tomorrow, so you'll still probably be the best.
Yeah, that's true. You're gonna pull a Liberace on me, right? I mean, or Wayne Newton on me. The best audience
that was the joke
had.
In Vegas about Wayne Newton. The things that are certain are death, taxes, and you're the best audience Wayne Newton's ever had. So it's all good, man. I really appreciate you taking time to join. I want to say hi to Bill and to everybody. We've got several folks watching on Instagram where they can only hear you. The folks that are watching live are seeing us together. But Randy, just to kind of start us out with our chat today, every day we've been talking about the challenges and the pressures and the situations that people are facing through this time that is unique to say the least. Let's just start. What are some of your observations about what's happening? And let's just start there. What's some of your observations about what's happening, and what should we be thinking about as we're going through this?
You know, one of the things that I think one observation from a company standpoint, what I see companies are doing, I think companies are falling into two camps. Those that are leading are focusing on the head, the numbers of it, and those are focusing on the heart. And I'm seeing them both. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing a little bit of both in those two things. And then, you know, on the human side, I think we're all just trying to look for a way to explain all this. And, you know, we feel like we've got to figure out what's happening and who to blame. And, you know, to quote the old Spanish novelist when writing about Don Quixote, sometimes I think we end up tilting at windmills and fighting imaginary battles when, you know, think about our parents, Scott.
Yeah.
What would our parents have said right now? You know, my dad, your dad, probably, they signed up and went to war when somebody attacked them. And now, you know, we question everything. And I think that's part of that desire to figure out who to blame in this time, because unlike World War II, there's no clear enemy dropping the bombs.
That's such an important point, Randy, is that there's, you know, it's, I don't mean for a political discussion here, but when President Trump talks about the unseen opponent, I do think that's a very good categorization, because it's hard to fight an opponent that you can't see. Sports analogies are overused, but, you know, we relate business and football so much where the opponent is right across the line of scrimmage from us. And here we've got an opponent that, you know, isn't in formation, isn't seen, and you combine that with our need to close the loop or to conclude the story or to blame somebody for the problems. And I think we end up in a unique and different situation now.
Yeah. You know, in fact, I sent you, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet. I sent you a link today about a documentary on Vince McMahon.
I have seen half of it. I haven't been able to complete it yet, but I'm to the point that the government has indicted him.
Oh, okay. But the thing I loved about it is they talked about after World War II, when his dad was in the business, that, you know, the reason people loved professional wrestling, or as we called it where I grew up, wrestling.
Wrestling, yeah, you bet.
Wrestling, is that there were clear good guys and bad guys. And it feeds into this desire that we have for good guys and bad guys. And, now you're looking at it and we can't point to a bad guy outside of us. So now we're just figuring out, well, we can't point to that bad guy. We'll figure out a bad guy somewhere to point to.
So, Randy, one of the things we talk about here every day is what do we do? I mean, what are some steps that we should be taking to? I mentioned yesterday, my political science degree. One of the lines that's been around forever in politics since the 1800s is "What never waste a good crisis."
Never waste a good crisis.
How do we make certain that we don't waste, even though this is a terrible situation that has befallen us? How do we make certain that we don't waste it? What can we do to make that better?
From my perspective is, people only change, organizations only change. You've heard me say this for two reasons. Crisis pushes them, opportunity pulls them into change. Now you have the ultimate opportunity. If there's something you've always wanted to change, now's the time to do that because you have the basis to make that happen. I think it's a balance between we've got to continue to think about our head and our heart. One of the things that I've been playing with, and you and I have talked a little bit about it, Scott, is everybody keeps talking about a new normal already. Mm-hmm. And I've sort of abandoned the idea of a new normal. It's only a new next.
I love that. Yeah.
And the new next is because, what's normal about anything that we're going through right now?
Right.
And so we've just got to figure out how to get through this next. What can we learn from this? And I suspect that, you go back to our UBS folks, Ultimate Business Summit folks, for last August, we were saying to them, remember, we were saying, get ready, there's going to be a recession coming at some point.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah. And I wish we had been more wrong than we are right now. But the ones that got ready, some of them are doing okay right now. So I think we got to go back and learn, get through it. Then we go back and learn the lessons, and then we start thinking about, but what's the new next?
Yeah, I really love that. One of the things I've talked about is that whether it's and we have some speakers that are watching. Kathy Dempsey just said McCain and Pennington, two amazing people. Thank you for that, Kathy. She just posted that. We have, but mostly these are folks that are.
Yeah, but she has bad judgment. We know that.
So. But we have mostly business people or just plain Facebook friends and folks that are watching this. Sure. and on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever they are right now. And one of the things that I've talked about, and you and I have talked about personally, is that we see a lot of businesses, whether it's in our business as speakers, trainers, consultants, coaches, that are pushing right now, or businesses that are pushing and pushing and pushing right now. A couple of comments. One is, I didn't need to get all of those emails from restaurants telling us how they're cleaner now than they've ever been, because I kind of wonder, what were you before you started doing all this? But I think we're trying to answer questions that have not yet been asked.
Right.
We are trying to bring our answers to the marketplace before, and you really struck me with what you said there too, is I think we're trying to complete the story or learn the lesson while we're still in the middle of it. And that we can't do that.
And I think you're right. Scott, I've heard you talk, and you do an amazing, that the stuff you do on story.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And if you think about the hero's journey, we're in Act 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't cut the story off in Act 2.
No, you're exactly right, Randy. And Act 2 is when you're still searching for resolution. For those that haven't heard me talk about that, and we're still searching for resolution. We're still in that part of the story where we don't know what the ending is, or when the ending occurs, or how the ending occurs, and so we just kind of got to learn what we can and buckle up and go for the ride. Don't you think?
Yeah, I've been doing a weekly video out kind of since the fall, and I just over the last few weeks started talking about crisis. And And the one I just posted yesterday says, it's time to start thinking about what's next. Mostly because you can do more than one thing at once.
Yeah.
I think you have to stay in the moment and then start thinking about what's next. Not that you're going to do anything with it, but and I struggle with that. When is it time? I don't know. I'm not sure when it's time to go and say, all right, we'll be full board back into it. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm not sure when that time is.
We were talking the other day here for those folks that watch every day about it's kind of a variation on something that Jim Rohn said, which is don't go to the market with your need, go to the market with your seed. What can you plant to help grow for your customers? And I think that's the corner we have to turn. So much of the marketing I'm seeing right now is desperation marketing. It's based on a need of the person trying to sell, as opposed to something that they can help their customer or their prospect plant to help it grow. And I see too many folks going to the marketplace with their need and not with their seed. By the way, Dan Weltman just asked us a question, Randy. How do you filter through the information overload that we receive daily?
Interestingly enough, we just did a video on that posted today. Yeah. With the three of us, Larry and Scott and me, with our Ultimate Business Summit idea shots. And I loved what you said in that video today, is like, focus on the customer. You didn't know that was the video that I posted today, but that was the one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but you said focus on the customer. Yeah. So, one response to Dan, what's going to help you serve your customer well? That is, everything else. And I talked in my video about there's a difference between signal and noise.
Yes.
And I think we got to focus on the signal. You can reduce the noise, but you got to focus on what the signal is. And the signal, I think, is how do you help your customers? How do you keep your employees safe? Mm-hmm. And if it's not that, everything else is sort of noise right now.
And by the way, and don't contribute to more noise, as you said too, right? I mean, don't be a contributor to the noise as you're trying to eliminate it. I think one of the things that we can do too, Dan, is to determine where we're going to put our focus. I've talked here before about, there are so many experts on this. There's the University of Washington coming out with their new guesstimate on the curve. There are, folks on the political spectrum. And I've basically said, I'm going to listen to Dr. Fossey and really eliminate everybody else. You have to be disciplined about the number of inputs that you are permitting yourself to be exposed to. And I just...
That's part of reducing the noise.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah. And I'm surprised you didn't say Jane on Facebook was one of your go-to people.
we talked about that's such a great meme. The BBC anchor saying, "We'll be back after this break with the coronavirus expert Jane from Facebook." It's amazing how many that were constitutional scholars on impeachment 90 days ago are now coronavirus experts. This just kills me too. I saw somebody post something the other day, and it was blatantly untrue. And somebody called her out on it, and she said, "I didn't post it. I just shared it." Well, forget it. I didn't post it. I just shared it. It's not my fault that it's not true. If you are, it's like saying, it's gossip. It's just ridiculous. If you don't know whether or not it's true, stop sharing it. Stop contributing to, as Randy says, the noise that's out there. Crazy.
When you said that, Scott, my very first thought was, I'm not the person who actually ate the bat. I'm just the person
I didn't. Yeah.
I'm just a person who walked around.
And
I just think, yes, you're right.
Bonnie Conti shares with us, don't contribute to the noise when you're trying to eliminate it. She's given that a thumbs up. Jeff Weimer out in California says, exactly. Talene says, duh, did she even read it before she posted it? Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't read it, I just shared it. So that's the kind of world we're living in right now.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier on, though, that people are looking for an answer. And to your point, I think they're looking for the answer to questions that it's not time to ask yet.
Yeah, yeah. And on one sense, I certainly understand it because I catch myself doing that. You know, how much longer is this going to last? And we have become so used to getting answers, right? I mean, we have conditioned ourselves because we can look it up on the internet and get so many answers instantly that we expect that we can get online or, you know, go on social media and somebody somewhere is going to know the answer to how much longer do we have to stay in our house. And it's the old William Golden quote about Hollywood. Nobody knows anything. I mean, I'm not saying we don't have experts, but it's a question that cannot yet be answered. Agree?
Yeah, right. And, you know, my take is we'll continue until we don't.
Yeah.
And you know, and again, today in the last couple of days, I really started thinking about, you know, my parents are both dead and have been for a number of years, but, you know, what would my parents have done if they were in my spot? You know, during World War II, do you suppose my mom thought when my dad was over in the Pacific fighting, I wonder how many days, I'm sure she thought it, I wonder how many days before the war is over and my husband comes home.
Yeah.
But I'm also sure that she said it will take as long as it takes. And my job is to get through as long as it takes.
You know, I had never thought about that before, Randy. You create a thought is that the other thing I bet she would not be saying is that this war is worse than let's get these boys home. We're wrecking the economy. She would not have.
Yeah.
She would not have taken a short-term view of this. That it's okay. You know, I don't care if all these people die. Let's get these boys home because we're wrecking the economy. There was a much longer-term view and a greater sensitivity to what outcomes were and how they would impact. So,
you know, and when you say that, Scott, I'm reminded of something I read, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It's cultures die when people stop remembering.
Ooh, that's really good.
And so if you think of, and it works that way in organizations, obviously, when people forget the legends and the symbols, but in society, you know, if you think back World War II, people who were in World War II weren't that far removed from the flu epidemic of 1918. Mm-hmm. They were alive then,
sure.
Most of them.
Yeah.
And so there were people who remembered and realized that it's been 100 years since we had the flu epidemic or pandemic, and it's been 75 years since we finished World War II. Hardly anybody's around that remembers. Yeah. You know, everything that's happened since then has affected part of us, but not all of us. It's really the first thing in 175 years that's affected every one of us when you stop and think about it that way. And so I think we as a culture have forgotten a little bit about national sacrifice.
That's such a great line. I hope everybody jots that down and remembers that. Cultures die when people stop remembering. And, you know, even 9/11 that brought us together as a nation was really localized in terms of what the impact was. I mean, when I went to New York, I gave probably the first keynote speech at a meeting in New York City after 9/11, and it just felt different there than it did from the LA area where I was living at the time. It was just different. And here, this is impacting people all over. It's different in Nebraska than it is in Manhattan right now, but yet it doesn't mean you're immune.
That's right.
So that's a great point I had not considered. Bonnie just said she's going to share that with her teams. That cultures die when people stop remembering. That is great. Jean Nadeau says hello, by the way. He is,
hey, Sean. How are you, my friend?
Ted Stark just wrote, in World War II, my father-in-law got married, then was overseas for 3 years. Wow.
Wow.
And we got to sit at home and watch Netflix and watch Tiger King.
Right. So. Although I'm betting after 3 weeks, there are a couple of spouses that were going, 3 years might not be a bad.
I posted, I think Tammy and I have watched so many shows on serial killers, I'm not certain how many people are left alive, but it's pretty crazy out there. Well, Randy, as we kind of wrap up, I would just ask, are there any specific things that you are doing to deal with this time, and any specific things that you might suggest that those that are watching us might consider to be doing as they're dealing with this challenging situation that we're all facing?
Well, I like you, Scott. I'm sort of sheltering at home, so I'm spending much more time at home. One of the things that I did for a while this morning, I didn't talk to. I just drove around for a while. Just to be out of the house. Yeah. I don't make it every day, but I try to get up and get dressed and, put on kind of worky kind of clothes every day just to have that routine. I think routines are really important. At least they're important for me right now. I'm thinking ahead. What's the next project that I'm working on? How do I go next? And Scott, you know that I've had a book in my head for about 2.5 years now. Yeah. I'm finally sitting down to write it. So, I'm trying to think about what's next. Mm-hmm. And it really is think about how do I get through today and how do I plan for what's next? And I think it's a dual focus, and those two things are probably that's as good as I can do right now.
Yeah, same here. I've been talking here about the importance of, just writing down a to-do list for the day, getting up and, as you say, getting something done. Because if we can create a to-do list and mark things off of it, then it doesn't seem like a wasted day. And I think that's part of what's causing so much challenge out there, is we think these days are wasted because we're not doing what we normally do. But yet, if we begin writing the book, or if we begin, thinking strategically about our lives or our businesses for the future, those are things, but we have to organize that and plan that and discipline ourselves. Jean asked the question, do you guys give yourselves a daily discipline? And, I'm walking a couple of miles every day, and there are specific activities I'm trying to get done every day. Randy, it sounds like you're doing exactly the same. And I don't think it matters as much what it is that you do, as much as it matters that you do something.
Right.
In an organized, strategic way. Agree? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking there's a lot of people out there. Our buddy Ted Stark is out there, and there are a lot of people that still have people coming to work.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm still coaching and talking to my clients almost every day. One of the things I'm telling them is you've got to flood the organization with positive news right now.
Yes. And that's part of why we're doing this, Randy. I mean, it's part of why I've been doing this every day at noon, and I'm so glad that you join me, is we're trying to bring ideas, not trying to sell anybody anything, but just trying to be positive and bring some positive ideas. And I think that's a really, really important point that you're making. Mike Stavers says hello. Great job, gentlemen. Great to see you, Mike. You're one of our faves.
You bet. Good to see you, man. Hey, Mike, call me.
Randall Reeder says, during World War II, I doubt there was constant criticism of FDR and General Eisenhower. We were more focused on one specific goal back then. That's probably true. My friend Lowell says, an empty to-do list means that you are ready to die. Because when you stop having things that need to get done, then you're about ready to check out. So, well, Randy, I can't thank you enough. Any last words for you?
I can't, really, I think I've exhausted my list right now.
Yeah.
And it's 2:30 where I am, it'll be time for a drink soon. So,
well, and I saw the coolest quote. I meant to mention this yesterday. I saw the coolest quote yesterday. It's the CEO of Zoom. And they said, how has this, everybody's talking about Zoom. How has this changed your life? And he said, finally, my daughters are interested in what I do. I thought that was they were never impressed with Dad until now they're meeting their friends on my company's technology.
Yeah, I mean, but you did in 30 seconds. I mean, you did just raise something. We think everything's bad. There are companies that are doing very well right now.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of my clients, they've seen their orders go up 15, 20%.
Wow.
They happen to be in the food business. They supply grocery stores and what have you. And they can't I can't get enough of this.
Yeah.
I've got some that are dead almost, but I've got a lot of them that, they're busier than they've ever been. And one of them is interesting. I was with them in January, and a bunch of their employees were saying, can we start working from home? And the CEO was like, no, I'm sort of reluctant to do that. And I just dropped him an email 2 days ago and said, how's that reluctance about working from home going? And he just wrote me back and said, yeah, I think we're through it. And again, because crisis pushes us to change. Don't waste it.
I love this. Mike Staver just wrote and said, hey, guys, I'm trying to decide if my first meeting is going to be AA or Weight Watchers.
They could merge.
I suggest Weight Watchers because
I love what you said, the quarantine 15.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm putting on is my quarantine 19. That's right. So, well, Randy, I can't thank you enough. It has been great talking to you today. I really appreciate you bringing your wisdom and your insight and, most importantly, your positive spirit here today. I really, really appreciate it, my friend.
My pleasure, and I'm sure that I'll be talking to you again before the end of the day somewhere.
You bet.
So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You bet, Randy. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's Randy Pennington. You can check him out online, and you can also check out the program that we do called the Ultimate Business Summit at ultimatebusinesssummit.com. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I'll be back again tomorrow at the very same time. My pal Mark Sanborn is joining us tomorrow. He's the author of the million-plus best-selling book, The Fred Factor. So Mark's going to be here to share his positive insight, and we'll continue the conversation. Ted, thank you for being with us. Ted says, great to hear from you both. A special afternoon. I appreciate that. Mike, thanks for jumping in here. Randall, as always, Lowell, everybody. Gosh, Bonnie, it's so great to see you. Betsy Allen Manning says, thanks for keeping us motivated. I appreciate that greatly. This is my favorite part of the day. I really enjoy connecting with everybody and sharing with everybody. And again, a special thanks to Randy Pennington for sharing with us today. So talk to you again tomorrow, same time, right here. Thank you for sharing. I noticed many of you were sharing this with your friends as Randy and I were talking. I appreciate that greatly too. See you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks so much.